talk about PEPEL.
You bet. Thank you, Mary Jo. Hey, thank you all for hosting me here. I appreciate it. It is a great opportunity to be here with the other great service organization in our community. As she mentioned, I'm with that Wednesday group. I will have to say that you guys sing a lot better than we do. Don't ever say that. I admitted that publicly. Oh, great, I'm on film. Are you videoing, or is that just a snapshot?
Video.
Oh. Just lost my Lions card, I think. So
You're always welcome here, Rob.
thank you. I appreciate that. So I just wanted to talk to you a little bit about some of the things that we have going on and the property, plant, and equipment levy that we have within the district. It's something that's been in place since at least 1989, which is back when Vinton and Shellsburg joined together to become Vinton-Shellsburg, and it's a very important part of the funding that we have available to ensure, you know, at the end of the day, it's all about quality education of kids. But the first thing I want to, as I talk about this, I want to point out is that Iowa finance law is just very different, and it's very complicated, and money comes to us in a variety of different categories. It can be levied in different ways, but it can only be spent in certain specific ways. And PEPEL is one of those things that can only be spent on basically what it says, property, plant, and equipment. It cannot be used to fund teacher salaries. It cannot be used to fund a wide variety of things that go on. But it has a direct impact on the education of kids. We're able to use that property, plant, and equipment levy for a wide variety of things. And just to give you some examples, and some of them are listed on there, you know, putting new roofs or roof repair on our buildings, buying new buses or vans or equipping them with safety equipment, new boilers or HVAC items, lawn mowers, snow blowers, blades for our trucks, all of our computers. We were able to, what's it been, 4 or 5 years now, Mary Jo, since we went one-to-one?
7 or 8, 7 years.
Oh my gosh, time flies. But we, you know, our students now have
9. This is
access
year 9.
of one-to-one. No way! Holy cow! Yeah, time really does fly. But we're able to provide each of our kids a computer. So much of what they're doing around education now, and so much of what you do day to day in the world is tied to automation. And the ability to work through web-based stuff, that's so much of what you take curriculum-wise in college now is all web-driven. And so what we're doing is we're helping prepare our kids for the world and prepare our kids for their future education as well. Security items, big deal, right? Security is huge, and you know, being able to get cipher locks, camera systems, putting in better doors and locks on classrooms. You know, I'm probably missing something.
Security getting into the building.
Yeah, just
preventing.
Prevention of access, and just the entry points, right? As we talk about, we did a remodeling project this summer with central office that controls. We've done it with the middle school so that we can have observed and controlled entry to our buildings to prevent unauthorized access to the buildings. Some of these buildings were designed back in the, you know, what, 50s with the middle school, maybe the 60s at Tilford. They weren't always built with some of the concerns and thoughts that we had around safety that we do now. All of our furniture, desks, tables, chairs, shelving, carpet, tile, flooring, cement for the sidewalks, the parking lot, the refurbishment of the parking lot there at Tilford, which for those of you that had kids in the elementary school, probably for years waded through the mud and the bumps and the potholes of that parking lot. Just the overall infrastructure, the appearance that we generate. You know, right now we're at a very, I think, important phase of the future of Vinton. We've got some great things going on with development of housing. We've got a couple new subdivisions going in. We're trying to lure people to our community, get them to choose Vinton as a place to live, and having outstanding schools is huge. I think anyone who is a parent or a grandparent understands that that's one of the foremost things on your mind when you're looking at a community is what are the schools like and what kind of education will my kids get. And the reality of it is you can be doing great things inside the schools, but if people roll up on your buildings and they look like they're crumbling and they're falling apart, the perception is that there's not good learning going on in there. And so PEPEL enables us to create, I think, a very positive image of our school, but it also provides the infrastructure and helps, we're able to use that PEPEL fund to pay for things that if we didn't have those funds, we would have to use general fund to cover. And if we're spending general fund money on things like air conditioners and parking lots and other things like that, that's money that's not being able to be spent on educating kids. So I think this is a very important thing. We've been able as a board, at least the 10 years I've been here, I've held very steady property tax rates. Our levy rate is about $15.50. It's about an average amount across the state. There's districts near us that are lower. There's districts that are right down the road from us that are about $3 or $4 or $3 or so higher than we are per thousand. And our number also includes a $2 per thousand levy for debt reduction to buy down that debt that we have from when we built the high school, which has been a fantastic facility. So a lot of good things going on. There'll be a vote on September 10th to renew PEPEL. Like Mary Jo said, on the back of it is the actual ballot. I don't think there's a lot going on that day election-wise. We might be the only thing going on that day as far as I know. And so, you know, we would love if folks could take a few moments of their time and come over. This is not actually authorizing the tax. You're not creating anything new, you're not changing anything. It just gives the board authority to vote each year on whether to levy it or not. And so every year there will still be a decision as the board sits down and sets levy rates. Are we going to use this? Are we not? How much of it are we going to use or not use? So you're not voting to approve a certain amount of tax. You're providing your board, which you elect, the authority to do this and to continue, I think, what has been a very important funding stream for us to be able to do some great things in our district.
And I'm just gonna interject there. One of the things about it, it is up to $1.34 per thousand of authority. But then the board decided probably, I don't know how long ago, but many years ago, to try to split that between property tax and income surtax. So this is not, I know the philosophy, it shouldn't every levy shouldn't go on our property taxpayers. So it's a combination of that property tax and income surtax. And so the property tax portion is 47 cents per thousand, and that raises about 250,000. And then the rest is from income surtax that raises about 450,000. For a total, we're talking $700,000 a year. So when you think about it, what Rob said, I think of this as curb appeal. And I am very pleased when I'm at some event and somebody from out of town says, wow, your facilities look great. Or, did you just open your high school? No, it's been here we're actually going into year 13 with our high school. But because of these things, we have really been able to maintain and really give that, people like to come here. I've been told that maybe our neighbor not too far down the road to the east was able to pass a bond issue because our community did. And there's a little bit, well, if they can have it, we want our kids to have a new school building. So I think that there really was kind of this, hey, we've got great facilities, let's keep them, and that's a good thing. So that's what I would interject with that as well.
What questions do you guys have about anything, Tom?
The $1.34 rate, is that higher, lower, the same as what it was?
Same, exactly the same. Yep. And then also, I mean, just to fill that in, there actually is a little bit the board can do every year, another 33 cents. And across the state, like all but one school district does that. So we're very similar to what's happening across the state.
Is there a minimum number of voters that we need? Like, no, just has to pass?
50% plus one. So if 3 people vote, we need 2.
And part of the challenge will be there's not a lot on the ballot, so it's going to be to get people there, because one
Yeah.
person does make a difference. Michelle?
Okay, you said that it's up to the board if you wanna use that money or not. Have you ever not used it?
Not since I've been here.
No, I don't think so. No, I don't think so.
Okay.
But I think the point to make with that is, even though it gives this authority to the board, if people are unhappy at a later date with the way the board is executing that authority, there's always elections and people, you know, can be told, thank you for your service, we're gonna go in another direction, with somebody who more reflects what the values of our community are, but, you know, so it's not, it doesn't, I guess my only point was it's not locking us into it.
No,
forever.
I didn't know that. I mean, it's kind of nice to know that it's not a given.
No, every year, everything is up.
And
for-
actually,
for vote.
the board has prepaid some of our bonds. Maybe that's what you were gonna say, Sue. Go ahead.
I was going to say also, we as a board have been very diligent about every spring when it's suggested to us what the administrators and the directors feel we should do for summer maintenance and upgrades and all of that. We've been very diligent in reviewing those and making sure that they seem to be a priority. And on those priority lists, the number one thing is safety and security of students. And then, you know, how we educate them, how is this going to impact that? And for an example, just recently, we've been looking at building a new bus barn because we really need, and the bids came in way above what we felt we should be spending on that. So we voted to decline, go back to the drawing board, see what we can do to make it more, a more effective use of dollars. We also set aside some of these dollars every year for major upcoming things such as, you want to be sure you have enough money set aside. What if a boiler goes down? What if a roof all of a sudden needs repair? And you haven't set aside reserved funds for that, then you're in big trouble.
And I think, well, it's like Mary Jo said, you can see that in the schools, and that's one of the problems. I think sometimes people build things, but if you don't have the money and the means and a way to maintain it, it's,
And our
We're being good
buses,
stewards of our money, so.
our buses are another example of, when you go to events, I don't know how many of you attend events at other districts and so on, but if you look around at the buses, you have to be proud that your bus where you live says Vinton-Shellsburg. They go out, not only are they clean, but everything is working. They are looking A1 shape, which is important for safety when you're sending kids 80, 100 miles away. You want that bus to be in good shape.
And we want our kids to be proud of the bus that they're on.
Yeah.
So when they get on the bus, they're proud of that too.
Yeah, the big buzz right now in the news media is seatbelts on school buses.
Yep, yeah, that's gonna happen.
I was gonna say.
I'm sure it's going to.
I suspect that they'll grandfather in any existing buses because the cost of retrofitting them is gonna be pretty high. And that'd be certainly something that we would take a look at. I think there's always been a lot of back and forth about the safety data, about whether the kids are actually safer with or without the belts on in an accident. And it sounds like the trend now is moving more towards let's buckle them in. And so I think at some point it's probably going to be any new buses you buy will have to have them, and that will raise the cost of them, and then we'll have to start looking at which buses we want to start retrofitting.
It'll raise the cost of a new bus between $5,000 and $10,000, and retrofitting between $8,000 and $15,000. Yeah, yeah. Sure, question.
I'd do it for less.
Yeah, but Joe, 2 pieces of rope won't do it.
They
we're talking about the safety of our children.
I was gonna ask, is that $700,000 figure on the rise over the last 10 years? And with the recent mandated of the appraising of all properties in Benton County, is that number expected to go up?
It has not, it has been right around 700,000 for the last several years. This year, I think it's 709,000. So, even though some valuations have gone up, remember there's always the rollback. So ag land has some rollback, ag has like about a 50% rollback, houses have about a 50% rollback. So even though those, some of those assessments have gone up, that doesn't translate dollar for dollar to us. And actually, what the board has done then is tried to reduce some taxes overall. So we're asking about the same, even though those assessments overall may have gone up. Yeah.
And I think some of it too is as the rollback rate has dropped for residential, it's gone up.
Yeah, they keep it balanced for ag land, and then
Yeah.
commercial didn't used to have any rollback, and they now have a 10% rollback for multi-dwelling places.
I would just like to say, I have not heard any community in the United States that's asking for the same amount of money in taxes over the last 10 years. Everybody has always asked for more. So that's a tremendous
But
kudos
I
to
would
you
say,
guys
if we
for
didn't
us.
have the PEPEL, both the voter approved and board approved, I would estimate we'd need to get rid of 10 teachers. And I would struggle.
Get rid of
10 teachers, I mean, to come up with the same dollars, or 10 or more than 10. I would struggle with saying, I think we can do that. I mean, I think we're pretty lean and mean, and class sizes are where they need to be. I'd hate to increase them a great deal. I want to go back to the question about how are the decisions made. It's really kind of a cool process that we use in our district. So our administrative team, we've already got it on the books. So all of our principals and our directors, so transportation, technology, buildings and grounds, business, it's a group of about 13 of us, and we sit around the table and we talk about what are the needs. And so everybody kind of listens, what are the needs in the different areas. And when we started this process a few years ago, we would have chart papers full of, okay, here's what we need here, and here's what we need here. And then we had to really prioritize, and we do. We go back, safety's number one. So anything on here that's directly tied to safety, boom, we've got to do it. But we really have prioritized those, and now when we have those conversations, they're shorter lists, but it's been a great experience for the buildings and grounds director to listen to what are the priorities of the elementary principal and all these people. And probably the classic was when we were talking about going to one-to-one at the high school for our students. The high school principal and the technology director very eloquently said, hey, we want every child to have a computer, we want it to be a Mac, you know, here's our estimated cost. And I will tell you that first year that was a really, really big number. When you buy a $700 computer for 400 plus kids at the high school, I mean, you can do the math, that was a big number. And so this was a big commitment, how are we gonna do this? And we talked, and it was probably the one time in my career I said, okay, silence at this point means you do not consent. So a lot of times when you're in those groups, silence means consent. No, silence means you don't consent. So everybody had to speak up what he or she thought about this. So we kind of went around the room. And Keith McGowan was so eloquent. And he says, you know, I really feel like I have in the transportation department what we need to get the kids to school safely every day. I want to make sure that when those kids get to the school, they have inside the school what they need. And so, I mean, it was a really cool example of how just everybody listening from different departments and sharing about their needs and priorities. We come up and we get our priorities to the board. The board has asked for more clarification sometimes, or just look at these, and so we go back. So it's been back and forth, but in general, it's been a good process that I think you can see. I think the evidence is in what you see. It's another thing. You don't oftentimes go to a school and say, wow, everything looks really good. But you would notice it if you walked into the school and it didn't look good. If there's crumbling walls, the paint's tacky, all those things, that's what you notice. But if things look like they do, it just looks like it's supposed to.